Snatching Back Your Life, The Art of Falling Forward. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, who is that person staring back at me? That moment when you realize the reflection doesn't match the person you know yourself to be. That's not failure, that's your wake up call. I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Fee Smith, the revolutionary author of Snatch Back Your Life, We Are Not Falling. Her work isn't just transforming lives, it's igniting a global revolution that challenges every assumption we've made about resilience, authenticity, and personal power. Fee stands as a beacon for those lost in the wilderness of their own compromises, illuminating paths that many of us couldn't even see through our tears of frustration. Her wisdom cuts through the noise of self help platitudes and strikes at something far more essential: the fierce reclamation of who we truly are. What struck me most during our conversation wasn't just Fee's brilliant insights, but the universal truth behind her message. We all experience moments when we lose ourselves. The question isn't whether we'll fall, it's whether we'll recognize the fall as an opportunity to rise differently. Let me tell you something that might sound contradictory at first. Falling isn't the problem, staying down is. When Fee talks about snatching back your life, she's not suggesting a gentle, polite reclamation. She's not talking about writing a strongly worded letter to the universe requesting the return of your joy. No, she's talking about a fierce, unapologetic grabbing of what's rightfully yours: your joy, your purpose, your authentic expression. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: nobody is coming to hand your life back to you on a silver platter. The snatching is up to you. I want to share three powerful truths from Fee's philosophy that changed how I view resilience and transformation. First, resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about reclaiming your power. Fee's journey shows that walking through fire doesn't just make you stronger, it reveals who you truly are beneath the layers of expectation and disappointment. It's not about bouncing back to who you were, it's about bouncing forward into who you're becoming. There's a world of difference between the two. Second, transformation begins with recognition. That moment when you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself, that's not a moment to fear. It's the first step toward reclaiming your authentic self. It's acknowledging that something needs to change. And let's be honest, recognition is painful. It's that moment when you can no longer pretend, when the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be becomes too wide to ignore. But that pain is the beginning of your liberation. And third, perhaps most importantly, your story isn't over yet. No matter how far you've strayed from who you once were or who you wanted to become, you have the power to write the next chapter on your own terms. The pen is in your hand, the blank page is waiting. What will you write? These aren't just pretty words. These are lifelines for those moments when you feel like you're drowning in expectations, obligations, and the weight of showing up as everyone else's version of you. Let me share some real world examples of what this reclamation looks like in practice. In 2025, World Book Day transformed from a simple celebration of literature into a global phenomenon of self discovery. Thousands of people shared how specific books helped them recognize themselves again after periods of loss or transformation. Through everything from beloved classics to fun and flirty contemporary fiction, readers discovered mirrors for their own experiences and windows into new possibilities. What made this movement so powerful wasn't just that people were reading, it's that they were finding the language to articulate their own journeys. They were seeing themselves reflected in characters who faced impossible choices, who lost their way and found it again, who dared to redefine success on their own terms. One woman wrote about how a novel helped her recognize that she'd been living her mother's dream, not her own. For 27 years, she'd pursued a career in medicine because it made her mother proud. But with every promotion, every achievement, she felt more hollow. Then she read a story about a character facing a similar dilemma, and something clicked. She realized she'd been playing a role in someone else's story. 2 months later, she enrolled in culinary school, something she'd always wanted to do but never dared. She described the moment she first put on her chef's whites as finally meeting myself again after decades apart. A corporate executive shared how a memoir gave him permission to step away from a prestigious but soul crushing career. He'd been telling himself that his unhappiness was the price of success, that his deteriorating health was just collateral damage on the road to achievement. But through someone else's story, he recognized his own denial. He saw the cost of his choices reflected back at him with unflinching clarity. 6 weeks later, he resigned. I realized I was dying for a paycheck, he said, and no amount of money is worth your life. A young entrepreneur described how fiction helped her envision possibilities she'd never been brave enough to consider. Growing up in poverty, she'd been taught to aim for security, not fulfillment. But through stories, she glimpsed a different way of being. She began to question the narrative she'd been given about what success could look like for someone with her background. Today, her business employs 15 people from her community, breaking cycles of limitation that once seemed unbreakable. This is exactly what Fee's work does. It provides both the recognition of where you are and the vision of where you could be. It creates that crucial moment of seeing yourself clearly, perhaps for the first time in years. But recognition alone isn't enough. You need to take action. This brings me to another powerful example, Lafayette's immersive theater production, Adventure Party TPK. This wasn't just entertainment, it was a choose your own adventure book come to life where participants stepped into new identities and made choices that determined their journey. Many professionals enter this experience feeling trapped in prescribed roles and paths, unable to see alternatives or exercise agency in their own lives. But something remarkable happened when they were given the freedom to experiment with different choices and identities in this safe environment. Participants reported profound shifts in how they viewed their own agency. One woman who had spent decades in a career she hated realized she'd been telling herself a story about having no options. I've been saying I can't for so long that I started to believe it, she admitted afterward. But in that space, when I had to make choices that determined my character's fate, I remembered what it feels like to have power over my own story. A man who'd always played it safe discovered a capacity for bold decision making he never knew he possessed. I've spent my entire life avoiding risk, he said. But when I had to make a split second decision in that fictional world, I chose the dangerous path. And it felt right. I've been wondering ever since what else I might be capable of if I stopped playing small. The show became known for these transformative experiences. People who enter feeling diminished left standing taller, ready to make bold choices in their real lives. The ripple effect extended beyond individual participants, creating community conversations about how we can all become active, authors of our own stories rather than passive characters. This is what Fee means when she talks about snatching back your life. It's about recognizing that you have choices even when all paths seem blocked. It's about experimenting with new ways of being even when you're afraid. It's about writing your own story even when others are trying to write it for you. But let's be honest, this journey isn't always pretty. Sometimes reclaiming your life means making difficult, even controversial choices. Consider the 1974 film The Sugarland Express, which tells the story of a woman attempting to reunite her family by helping her husband escape prison. She faces seemingly insurmountable obstacles, including the law and societal expectations, much like many who feel trapped in circumstances they didn't choose. Rather than accepting her situation, she takes radical action to change her circumstances, even when the path forward isn't clear. And while things don't go as planned, the journey itself becomes transformative, revealing both the cost and the necessity of fighting for your own life. This story resonates decades later because it captures the universal experience of reaching a breaking point where continuing as before becomes impossible. The film's enduring legacy comes from its honest portrayal of both the courage required to snatch back your life and the messy reality of what that process actually looks like. As Fee would say, we are not falling, we are falling forward. There's a profound difference. When I asked Fee what she would want you to do differently after encountering her message, her answer was beautifully simple. Look in the mirror, really look, and ask yourself, who am I beneath all the roles I play and expectations I carry? Then write down three things you used to love that you've abandoned and commit to bringing just one back into your life this week. This isn't about adding another item to your to do list, it's about reclaiming a piece of yourself that got lost along the way. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. I love this advice because it's both profound and practical. It acknowledges that reclamation doesn't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. Sometimes it's as simple as picking up a paintbrush again, or dancing in your kitchen, or writing bad poetry that makes your soul sing. So here we stand at the crossroads between who we've been told to be and who we truly are, between the lives we've settled for and the lives we deserve, between falling down and falling forward. The choice is yours. But remember this, every moment you spend living someone else's version of your life is a moment you can never get back. Every compromise that shrinks your spirit, every yes that should have been a no, every dream deferred in the name of practicality. These are the invisible thieves that steal your life one day at a time. It's time to become the thief instead, to steal back your joy, your authenticity, your power from a world that profits from your diminishment. It's time to declare, as Fee so boldly puts it, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. So I challenge you, no, I dare you to look unflinchingly at your life tonight, to ask yourself where you've compromised, where you've settled, where you've abandoned yourself. And then I make one promise that tomorrow will not be another day of sleepwalking through a life that doesn't fit you anymore, because you deserve more than survival. You deserve revival. You deserve to recognize yourself again when you look in the mirror. You deserve to feel the exhilaration of living on your own terms. The snatching back of your life begins now, not tomorrow, not when you're ready, not when it's convenient or safe or approved by others now. And remember, we are not falling, we are rising, we are reclaiming, we are snatching back every piece of ourselves that the world tried to take away. The question isn't whether you'll fall, it's how gloriously you'll rise.